Shalom, giving all praise to Yahweh Shem Shalom Kakodah. Shalom to the hopeful elect out there. And I'm going to entitle this video, The New Moon, and what does let no one take your crown mean? And we'll see where the Spirit takes us. I wanted to get into a real controversial video, but I said I'm not going to do it because it'll be long and drawn out. A lot of information, mainly focusing on the Moors and what they did to their enemies. And like in Europe, you go into the history of the Moors. They took over Spain, they took over Ireland, they took over Italy, the southern part of Italy, other places, the Iberian Peninsula, in that area, if you look at a world map. And what they did was they would kill the men off, and they would brutally rape the women, and they would have babies. So a lot of these people that come from Spain and Ireland and Scotland, Jake was ruling that any damn way. So a lot of these people that you see that you think are Edomites, a lot of them are Jakes. So you can't just say, oh, you're an Edomite. But anyway, I want to go into that topic of the grape thing. And that was like something that Jake did. And that goes back to the laws. That's why there were certain laws how to deal with the enemies, women are the other enemies. If they're not, if they're married, you like in among the Midianites, in Numbers 31, Moses told the men to kill off all the men, kill off all the married women, kill off all the boys, and take the little girls for yourself. So what do you think they did with the little girls? They were raping them, and when they reached puberty, of course, 11, 12, 13 years old, and they would have slaves. They would have children from those slave women, and those children, whether they be sons or daughters, were Israelites. So, an Israelite man, if you cut off all Israelite men, then you cut off Israel. It has nothing to do with the woman. I don't give a damn how many Judite women or Ephraimite women that you have left. You cut off all the men, you cut off all of Israel. And Esau knows that, because his thing was to cut us off from being a nation. Literally, when you go to Numbers 23 and 9, and when you go to Psalms 83, they wanted to actually not say, okay, they're the Israelites, but then we're not going to tell them who they are. Their thing was to just totally do away with Israelites by killing off the men. When you go into the story of Moses, the account of Moses, they were looking to kill all the boy babies of the Hebrews, right? The same thing during the time Yahushua was Herod, they was looking to kill all the boy babies. Although it didn't say the boy babies, it said babies. It didn't say boy babies. But they wasn't killing off little girls. They were killing off the boys, because the boy carries the seed. Or the boy, in the case of Messiah, Moses was a sort of a Messiah at that time. Yahushua was, of course, the Messiah. So if you cut off all these kids during the time of the fulfillment, then you kill the Messiah. So you know the whole story. Anyway, so grape was a big thing in the scriptures in the ancient world. And that was called booty in Habakkuk 2. So, which means spoils. And part of the spoils were the women and the men if you put them in slavery. So anyway, I said, let me deal with the new moon. We're in the new moon as of right now. It's as of last night, July 17 at evening was the new moon. And so all day today, which today is Tuesday, is a new moon. So next week, Monday night, sundown, is the Sabbath. So the new moon is also a Sabbath. Sabbath just means rest. So on the new moons, you rested. You didn't buy or sell, and you rested. but really what you did, you worshiped the Most High. You had the feast. They cooked the meal. You know, we're going to read that account anyway. It's in this first precept. So they cooked the meal and they timed it for the feast. They timed it so when the sun started to go down, the meal was already prepared to eat, and the meal was hot. So you turned off all the fires and you stopped cooking. And that shows you that the Sabbath and the new moons come in at night. It doesn't come in the next morning. It comes in at night. When the sun is going down on that day, that's when you celebrate the new moons and the Sabbath. So if anybody telling you different, oh, you got to wait until the morning, they don't understand the scriptures. It always started days from one day to the next. Always started when the sun went down. That was the beginning of the new moon of the new day. So what I did was, and the reason why I'm going into the subject of let no one take your crown, we were listening to General Nathaniel Agad, UIC, and he was going into last class that he did on Saturday, and he was going into part of the subject was about the crown. He read, told the individual to read Revelation 3 verse 10. 3 verse 10 and 11 goes on to say, let no man take your crown. Now the 10th verse is talking about the charagma. That's the time of testing. So when you read the 10, 11 verse, it goes on to say, let no man take your crown. And then he goes to, I believe it's 2nd Ezra 4, or 1st Ezra 4, whatever. I'll find it. I haven't read it in a while. And it speaks about this king concubine, which was the daughter of this captain. She had took the king's crown and put it on her head. So he went from that precept in Revelation 3, 10, and 11 to that precept, which has nothing to do with the crown. That doesn't mean somebody's going to physically take your crown. Oh, don't let no one take your crown. So this king got his crown took. No, the crown is talking about the rulership. It's not just a crown. When we get in our kingdom, that's when we're going to wear the crown. We're going to sit on thrones. We're going to have scepters in our hand. We're going to have crowns over our head. And we're going to have the other nations as subjects. That's what it means by the crown. So the Apostle Paul said, I'm not Apostle Paul. Apostle Paul said he was waiting for the crown to be crowned. And was that the second Timothy 4? So we're going to look up that word, and we're going to so when he said, "Oh, go to Ezra," that's not talking about that. They ain't talking about a literal crown. The crown represents the kingdom. The kingdom. So anyway, let's deal with the word new moon. And by the way, the new moon is not the full moon. The new moon is when the moon, you can't see the moon. Matter of fact, this is what I'm going to show you. This is called the phases of the new moon. And I believe this is updated every day. Yep, it's updated. And I have this in my favorites. Okay, it says new moon phases 2023 lunar calendar for New York, USA. Then so it's showing you the new moon where it's dark. And you see right that little light, that little sliver of light, that's what you'll normally see. So last night sometimes, I'm gonna go back 12 hours ago, it was totally black. Or you saw like a slight sliver of light. As it says moon, it says 0.8% waxing crescent. That's the crescent. Waxing means it's going to get brighter as the days go by. In 7 days, okay, let me just show you. So this is the new moon. This is the first quarter. You're going to see half a moon. So that's 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, really 7, 8 days. In 4 days, you'll see the moon kind of like this, like a bigger crescent. But 7 days, you'll see half of the moon. And then on August 1st, that's the full moon. Strontian moon, or the full moon, is that's when the moon is bright white, a perfect circle. So when the IUIC says a new moon is a full moon, they're clearly going off. There's no scholar that would teach that agree with them. Not one biblical scholar, no expert in the scriptures or in the history of the scriptures will even say that. So he's clearly going off. And he did that back in 2016. He set up the IUIC in 2003. So we're talking about what? 13 years later, all of a sudden he gets this vision, oh, the new moon is a full moon. Why would I said this in a previous video. If the Most High gave his secrets unto the servants, the prophets, will he leave out his name? Oh, I'm going to give you everything, but I'm not going to give you my name. But in the scriptures, he says, call on my name, praise my name. I don't know how many times. Yahweh Shai says that, do this in my name. I have forsaken none of them. I have kept them in thy name. But then we don't know the name. How stupid is that? How stupid is that? And they're waxing worse and worse. They got another thing. I didn't want to talk about IUIC today, but it comes up. The thing about hell, that was never taught at the main school. It was brought up by the high priest Yeshai. He used to bring it up every 2 years. He used to sneak it in there, and he would always get brought to council about the hell thing. Then he was shut down. Then 2 years later, he would bring it up. That's why we don't believe he's one of the chosen, because he was bucking up against the higher up over him. You know, the Ariyah, Yahweh, Mashah. So we don't see none of those guys. We don't see none of those 7 right now. So it's between them and the Most High, whether the Most High is going to bring them back up, save them, deliver them, have mercy on them, whatever. Ultimately, the scriptures say, work out your own soul salvation. I'm not going to bend over backwards for anybody. You know, we tell guys, we get on guys if they're lacking, but there comes a point we're not going to get on you. If we done told you 1,000,001 times, you know, you got to be more diligent, you're not doing this, and we got to constantly get on you about being diligent. After a certain point, just leave the nigga alone. Just leave him alone. That just proves he's not one of the men of the Most High. And we're in a time now that you're supposed to be on fire. If you ever ran track, and I ran track, you know, junior high school, and before that, we had little track meets. I was always good in the dash, but I got into like cross country and like more distant type races. But I was real good. I was like a natural in sprinting. So when you're sprinting, even if you do a long race, when you almost reach the finish, maybe you got 50 steps, 40 steps before you reach the finish line in a distant race. Do you know what you do? You pick it up. You pick it up, because the guy next to you might beat you. So it's the same thing with this truth. The Apostle Paul said this is like running a race. So you guys there's guys out there, go back One West days, 90s or whatever, that have been taking breaks through this thing. like what's this guy, Sergeant Barnes of the movie Platoon. He said it was Elias, which was what's this guy, William Defoe. They were going back and forth at each other, and he said Barnes, something like that. But anyway, he gave those guys a pep talk right after the fat boy got killed, thinking about his woman at home, which the Jake is popping it right now, you know. Um, he said this is what happens, when your shit is not wired tight at all times. He said he said look at this sorry piece of shit. He said have your shit wired tight at all times. You wind up in a body bag. So what does that mean? That means be alert. You're in a war. When you come into this truth, you're in a spiritual war. So you don't take breaks in this war. There's no R&R in this thing. As another topic, there's no R&R in this truth. You got guys, and tell me if I'm lying. Tell me if I'm lying. You got certain guys that came into this thing that you don't see them. There's points where you don't see them for like a year. Then all of a sudden they'll pop back up. Or you don't see them for 6 months, or you don't see them for 3 months, and they're kind of in and out. And then when they're out, they're not even really on fire, but then sometimes they're on fire, and you don't see them for 2 years or 5 years. Most High's not dealing with you. The scripture said, give diligence to make that calling and election sure. So at one time, they made this truth their first priority, but now it's like 10th on the list. I do the Israel thing. Or a lot of guys come out of nowhere on the Passover. You don't see them all of a sudden. Passover come, all of a sudden they pop out of nowhere, ready for the Passover. Those are just Israelites. Those are not men of the Lord. And not every Israelite is a man of the Lord, meaning a prophet. You got some guys that know that they're Israelites. They're just not built to be out there week after week. We know we got to go out there. When Saturday come up, whether I want to go out or not on that week, I go out. I don't feel like going out. Well, guess what? While I'm saying that, I'm getting everything set up to go out. So my mind is messing with me, but my body is in auto drive, putting everything together, putting the books, make sure I got my scriptures and my garment. It's just a given. We go out. If it rains, we got umbrellas. umbrellas. Inside joke. But anyway, so this is correct. And the new moon, the moon begins to wax. Now let me see something. When it gets to this stage, then the moon begins to wane. It says decreasing in her perfection. When is the moon in a perfection? Is the moon in the perfection when it's like this at this state, or is the moon in perfection when it's at that state? Or is the moon in perfection? No, it's not perfection. It's half a moon. Or I'm sorry, like a quarter, a half a moon, then you got a quarter. So like I said, they're teaching that the new moon is a full moon, which is clearly off. This is what Matthew 13, you can start at 11, says that he took it away from them, even that they had. That's why, like I said, by UIC, they're teaching the hell doctrine, that the lake of fire is a eternal hell. That's what they're teaching now. So they're clearly going off. And that's the spirit making them go off. So anyway, let's read some of these precepts. And by the way, in order for you to have a Friday sundown and Saturday sundown Sabbath, there has to be evidence of 2 calendars. And that the Most High gave Israel 2 calendars. Because where did they learn about the high holy days and how the new moon works, the phases of the moon works? They got it in the wilderness. They didn't give them no calendar. They didn't steal a calendar from the Egyptians, because their calendar was all messed up. If you do the research, the Egyptian calendar you know how many weeks they had in a month? They had 3 weeks in a month. A week was 10 days. So how the hell you gonna follow that calendar? And the Julian calendar was based upon the Egyptian calendar. Julius Caesar was in Egypt for about a couple months, I believe, and he was getting all the information to set up a calendar for Rome. So the Julian Roman calendar, the Julian calendar was based upon the Egyptian calendar, which the Egyptian calendar was off. So let me just read these precepts. I'm gonna pick out a few of them. It says, and David said unto Jonathan, behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to sit with the king at meat. Like I said, you had a feast for the new moon. So you had your servants cook, and they timed it where they finished everything when the moon was going down. So when the moon was when the sun totally went down, then you ate. It said, but let me go that I may hide myself in the field unto the third day at evening. So wait a minute. The third day is based upon what? The third day after the new moon, right? So it's like I said, there's only one calendar. The third day. If it was the first month of the year, right? Abib. How many more days before you begin the unleavened bread, the Passover? There would be another 11 days, right? Because everything is based upon the new moon. Not, oh, the Passover fell on a Friday night, so that's a double. That's what they used to teach you, Shai. That's a double Sabbath. If there's such a thing called a double Sabbath, wouldn't that be written in the scriptures? Oh, this is a double Sabbath. It says, and David said unto Jonathan, behold, tomorrow is the new moon, which is the first day of the month. The word month means moon. And I should not fail to sit with the king at meat, but let me go that I may hide myself in the field unto the third day. So it was the first day, the evening. So he hid himself unto the third day. Not based upon the Egyptian calendar. It was 3 days into the new moon. That's why when you go to Leviticus 23, every high holy day, including the Sabbath, was based upon the new moon. And jump down to the 18th verse. Then Jonathan said to David, tomorrow is the new moon, and thou shalt be missed, because thy seat will be empty. Remember, the new moon, you had a feast. And the kingdom, we're going to go back to that. When the new moon comes in, we're going to have a feast on that night. And then we're going to go worship the Most High. And not everything going to be shut down. No business, no transactions whatsoever. Everything going to be shut down. Esau is not going to be working in the field. The nation is not going to be working for us. They're going to be able to actually rest. So they're going to look forward to these other nations. They're going to look forward, especially Esau. They're going to look forward to the new moons, the Sabbath, the high holy days. Now, the Sabbath, the first day at evening, the 14th day at evening is the Passover, which is the beginning of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So for that day is a Sabbath. Esau will be able to rest, the nation will be able to rest, no business. Then when the sun goes down, we can beat the shit out of Esau again until the 7 going into the 8th day. So it's 7 days. Then they'll get another rest, and then after that, they're gonna get the hell beat out of them. They're gonna work in the field. So it says, so David hid himself in the field, and when the new moon was come, the king sat him down to eat meat. Let's look at 2 Kings 4, verse 23. And he said, wherefore wilt thou go to him today? It is neither new moon nor Sabbath, showing you that the new moon is a Sabbath. You don't work on that day, and you don't have sex on that day. any camp that's teaching you can have sex on the Sabbath, they're clearly going off. The new moon was a high holy day. The Sabbath was a high holy day. The scriptures speak about against defiling yourself on the Sabbath. How do you defile yourself or pollute yourself? By having sex with a woman. That makes you unclean until the evening. Nor Sabbath. The Most High told Moses, when they come to the mount, let not your men come to their wife for 3 days, because they had to come holy. They had to come undefiled. And she said, it shall be well. So the new moon and the Sabbath, you chill out that day, the day of the Sabbath. You sleep, you have the meal, you go to sleep, you wake up, you study the Most High, you go to the temple, have it set up, and you worship the Most High. This is what, matter of fact, let me do this. I'll bring up another tab. I believe it's Luke 4. Bear me for a minute. Okay, it says here in 15 verse, Luke 4:15, and he taught in the synagogues, being glorified of all. Okay, this is the point. Okay, so Luke 4 verse 16, and he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the what? On the Sabbath day. You go into the temple, you can't go when you're unclean. And stood up for to read, because that's what you're going to do in the kingdom. We're going to dedicate ourselves that day to the Most High, that whole day. So let me look up the word custom. And came past to Nazareth, that brought up. Okay, let me look up the word custom. The word is etho. To be accustomed, use, want, that which is want, usage, custom. Okay, this is a good one. And Paul, as his manner was, or as his custom was, went into the synagogue. So the Lord's custom, and this word etho, Ethel, like the custom of the Italians is, spaghetti, whatever, on Wednesdays, or like the Irish, St. Patty Days, St. Patty Day Parade, which he was a Jake, and he was a Scottish Jake. They celebrate Matthew March 17th, and that's a custom. You wore green, and you went to the parade, or you went out to the bar, or whatever. That was part of their custom. An American custom is you celebrate Christmas. 4th of July is a custom of a U.S. person. So here you're celebrating the 4th of July, but other countries are not celebrating that. They're celebrating their Independence Day, like France. Their independence was what was it? I believe it was 1787, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody help me out. But they'll have a Deliverance Day when they killed the king and the queen, Mary Antoinette and her husband. That was when they killed the monarchs. That's the first democracy or the republic that they had. Republic simply meaning the people rule. And all the leaders of those people are trustees of the people. So that's their custom. That's their ethos. You know what I'm gonna do? Let me do this. Okay, so let me do this here. So custom meaning this is what he did, along with every other Israelite that was living in Nazareth or Bethlehem. Their custom was we kept the Sabbath and we went to the temple and we read from the Torah. As a man, it was only men that were circumcised. So that shows you right there that if he had to go as his custom was, because he was the ethnos, he was the Israelite. This is what the Israelites did, and even the Israelites that were outside of Israel, like the Alexandrian Jews. Guess what? They had temples in Egypt, and then they would do the Sabbath thing. The ones that came, they came to Jerusalem for the Passover 3 days out of three times out of the year. Deuteronomy 16 and 16. So it was their custom too. So that proves you right here that this is the Sabbath, because in the kingdom of heaven, you're going to be dedicating yourself to the Most High on that day. Not going to be having sex, not going to be playing with your children necessarily. You're not going to be out there playing out in the field and going someplace and enjoying yourself and cooking. Everything going to be shut down. So it's going to feel like a holy day in the air. So now let me come back over here. It said, blow up the trumpet in the new moon in the time appointed on our solemn feast day. So what does that mean? Blow up, Psalms 81 verse 3, blow up the trumpet in the new moon in the time appointed on our solemn feast day. Now you notice it didn't say feast days. It said feast day. What feast day is it talking about? Doesn't tell you. Let's see what the commentators have to say about this. And I already know what they're going to say. They're going to either say Passover or the tabernacles. So here's a commentary, right? It says, blow up the trumpet in the new moon in the time appointed on our solemn feast day. On our solemn feast day, singular. So it's one day. Let's see what Cambridge have to say. The trumpet, the shofar, the horn, as distinguished from the metal trumpet in the Pentateuch, the use of the shofar, which is the ram's horn or the horn, is only prescribed in connection with the year of Jubilee. But right, you even had a 7 year, every 7 years you had the year of release. So you had like a yearly Sabbath, that was the year of release. Then you had a 7 sevens, which was a Jubilee, which is seven times seven of what is it? The year releases, which is like a mega year. The Jubilee is a mega year of release. So that's why this system that we're living is messed up, because they don't follow the laws of the Most High. Because people stay in debt, they get caught up in debt, and it destroys people, destroys nations. And Esau knows that. That's why he's got to be taken out. You can't pay the bill in 7 days, in 7 years, then you get a white slate. You start a white board. But according to practice, it was used for the new year as well. Right, the new year would be, now the small hats, they'll say the new year is Yom Kippur, the day around about the day, the memorial of blowing the trumpets. I'm sorry. It says in the new moon, right? The Targum expressly states that the new moon of Tishri is meant here, and there is no sufficient reason for setting aside the ancient, should be Israelite tradition or custom, and supposing that the new moon of Nisan, the first month of the ecclesiastical year, that's Passover, right? Passover year is meant. So they're saying Tishri. Yeah, I don't want to look that up. What I want to look up is Nisan, the first month of the ecclesiastical year. When is the first month of the ecclesiastical year? That's when the spring comes in. That's when you keep the Passover. Is meant on the ground that the contents of the Psalm, which is Psalms, 81 verse 3, show that the festival at the new moon referred to in the text line must be the Passover. So now, if the full moon, listen to me good, focus. You gotta listen. You gotta listen. If the full moon, I show you what the full moon was on the Passover. When do you celebrate the Passover? You celebrate the Passover 14 days at evening after the what? After the new moon. Right? So the Lord celebrate the Passover. The time that he celebrated and Israel celebrated was on the full moon, which was what? 2 weeks in the new moon. When he was put on the cross later that day, going into the day, because he represented the Passover, he was born on the Passover, he died on the Passover. When he was on the cross, what occurred? There was darkness for 3 hours. What is that called? That's a sign. How does darkness come into play in the middle of the daytime? What is it? What is that? That was the third hour, the 6th hour of the day to the 9th hour of the day. From 12 noon, if I'm not mistaken, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Right, 12 noon until 3 p.m. Everything went dark. What makes things get dark? Well, the Most High said the signs that he uses the moon, right? Sun, moon, stars. So what did he cause to happen? He caused a lunar eclipse to happen, not a solar eclipse, but a lunar eclipse. Do the research on lunar eclipse. Lunar eclipses only happen during the time of a full moon. The Earth, how's it go? I got to go back and read. I believe the Earth is right in between the moon and the sun. Or the moon is in between the sun, the Earth and the sun. Got to go back and do the research again. So it's a lineup. That's why it becomes dark, because the moon is blocking the sun because it's a lesser light. A brighter light, Genesis 1, lesser light. So when it lines up, everything goes dark. And it happens every so many years. So when things went dark, that was clearly a lunar eclipse, which happened during the full moon. The Passover, the feast, the Passover took place that night, and later that day was called the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So that was the 15th day of the month, a Nisan or Abib. So for them to teach that the new moon is the full moon, they're clearly not getting into the scriptures. And you know what? If he sees this video, which I'm sure he's going to see, he'll probably do a video Saturday going into the new moon. That man is full of pride, man. That man got nothing but pride in him because he does not want to be proven wrong. He does not want to be proven wrong. And the men that are so-called co-leaders, they're really not co-leaders. There's only one guy. He's the king, and the rest of them are subjects. Because if they got a problem, he'll tell them to hit the door. So I just broke it. I didn't tell you what it meant. I broke it down to you. It's humanly impossible for the Lord to die on a dark moon, because that would mean that the new moon is a full moon, and that's when the Passover came in. No, it doesn't prove that. We know that he died on a full moon, which was 2 weeks into the new moon, right? And there was a lunar eclipse. Look up the word lunar eclipse. The only time a lunar eclipse can occur is during the time of the full moon. And that was 2 weeks into the new moon. So they're off again. It says, so they're telling you to blow up the trumpets in the full moon. They're telling you when the full moon comes in, 2 weeks into the new moon. So let me read a little bit more. And the time appointed, better at the, so this is what the scholars say. I don't know if they all agree. You know what I'm gonna do? They say Passover. Let me see how many scholars, because these scholars, these Christian scholars, they all have different opinions, showing you that the Most High is not dealing with them. Okay, so now Passover is there 16 times. They said the fulfillment of Psalms 81 verse 3 has to be the Passover. A Passover comes in two weeks or 14 days, going into 15 days after a new moon. So the new moon would have to be what? When the moon is dark. They say the same thing. There are some, however, as Hengzenberg, professors, whatever, Cheyenne and Professor Alexander, who consider it to be a Passover month. The poet means to say that the feast of the Passover is to be saluted by the moon of the Passover month, the blowing of the shofar. That's Psalms 81, verse 3. This is to be continued at the feast of the what? Passover itself, the feast of the Passover. These are what all the scholars say. It says, my essay on the Passover writes, during the time of the second temple and whatever, blah, 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 blah. Now they argue whether it's the Feast of Tabernacles, because the Feast of Tabernacles work into 14-day at evening, 15-day of the seventh month, as opposed to the 14-day at even, 15-day in the first month. So it says, then what is meant is either the Feast of Tabernacles, because it does fall on the 15th, to the full moon, okay, which is called absolutely Chag, and elsewhere on the Passover, which is also so called Isaiah 30:29, and unleavened bread. They say it's a Passover. It's talking about the Passover. It says it's the Passover. Passover. The Passover came in 14 days on and even going to the 15 days from the new moon, which the moon was dark. So when they celebrated, and if they were outside, they looked up in the sky, the moon was full. On the time of the death of the Lord on the cross, that was later that day, on the 15th day, there was this lunar eclipse. Lunar eclipse only occurs when there's a full moon, which is 2 weeks into the new moon. The word solemn is not necessarily in the original, though the day was one of great solemnity, meaning solemn. The Passover is doubtless referred to on our solemn feast day, Hebrew, and the day of our feast. So I think I covered that. Now let's deal with the word crown. If you're in the kingdom and you're sitting on your throne, your crown, and you're messing with one of your concubines and she takes the crown off your head and put it on her head, you didn't lose your crown. All right? So this is it right here. But you see how many times the word crown is written, right? This is it right here. First Ezra 4, verse 30, and taking the crown. I gotta go to context. This is Zerubbabel. What is the greatest? The woman, wine, truth, the king. He said ultimately the truth. So it says, 1 Ezra 4, verse 28 to 31. And now do ye not believe me? Is not the king great in his power? Do not all region fear to touch him? Yet did I see him, the king, and Epami, the king's concubine, because meaning he had more than one woman. He had wives and he had concubines. The daughter of the admiral Barticus. So this guy was a high-ranking guy under the king, and he had this beautiful daughter that the king wanted. So the admiral said, "Yeah, you can have her." Sitting at the right hand of the king. Now, this concubine, she was super fine. I mean, she was super fine. And taking the crown from the king's head, this has nothing to do with let nobody take your crown. So when they went over that in IUIC Saturday, that's not talking about that. The crown that you read about is talking about the kingdom of heaven. In the kingdom of heaven, you can have a crown on your head. You can take the crown off. When you go to shower, you're going to take a shower. You're going to take a bath or a shower with the crown on. If you have a concubine in the kingdom and she pulls the crown off of your head and puts it on her head, women do that with hats. You got a hat on. You got the hat on backwards. That's your woman. And she takes the hat. She put it on her head. You're going to laugh at it, man. That's what that's talking about. And you're making it deeper than what it really is. This crown right here has nothing to do with the crown in Revelation. What is that? Revelation 3 and 10. And taking the crown from the king's head and setting it upon her head. What was she supposed to do? Chop her head off? She also struck the king with her left hand, meaning she smacked him because let's read on. It says, and yet for all this, the king gaped and gazed upon her with open mouth. Meaning she was fine. I mean, she was fine. If she laughed upon him, he laughed also. But if she took any displeasure at him, the king was fain to flatter. Baby, what did I do? What did I do, baby? That she might be reconciled, brought back together to that state of happiness to him again. So who was in control over the king? That woman. What gave her the power of being control? And that's what it represents. She was like saying, look, nigga, I'm the king. You ain't the king. I'm the king. And then he went to say something. She said, shut up, and smacked him. And he was still gaping. He was lusting. He was lushing. You lushing, Ak. He was lusting after her. So you got these idiots saying that, oh, you can't lust. If you have a woman, you lust after your woman. You lust after your wife. When she dresses in a certain way, you lust after her. This was one woman I used to deal with that she had about 25 different, like the whole garter belt with the fishnets, with the matching pumps and the negligees and shit on top of that. And every time we got together, she put on a different one. And then she would say, what do you think? And my mouth would open up, man. But I'll be like, oh shit, And so she got away with things. After we did what we had to do, she wanted, oh baby, I want to get this, I want to eat this. And then, that's all right, baby. Whatever. Y'all know some women y'all are into more than others, right? So that's what it was talking about. So she was pretty much saying, look, nigga, I'm the king. I'm the king. You're like, all right, baby, you can be the king. You can be the king. So you can imagine how fine she was, man. Back then, that's when they were super fine, because the Most High took their beauty. So now let me come over here. Let me come over here to the scriptures. Okay, let me go to Revelation 3:10. Okay, so let me read this. Because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep you from the hour of temptations, which shall come upon the world. Oikum many sense, the whole world. This is the chip, the hour, and the NLT it says the great time of testing. The great time of testing is when the whole world will have to accept that the microchip to try or test them that dwell upon the earth. So the ones that take it in America, they're going to be destroyed. The ones that don't take it, that are Israelites, that are the elect, well, you're not going to take it if you're of the elect. Some of you are going to be beheaded too. Behold, I come quickly. Hold that fast which thou hast, that no man take thy crown. So what does it mean, no man take thy crown? It means that you don't lose your position in the kingdom of heaven, that you make it to the kingdom of heaven, that you go from this wicked world, be delivered in the ships, and then you land and then you build the kingdom of heaven. Because we're going to have a far greater experience, the fact that we was on this side of the world, and then coming into the world to come and seeing that world be built and us being changed and having spiritual power. The ones that die, they're going to miss that. But they're going to come back in the kingdom as newborn babies. They're not going to burn in hell. Not one Israelite's going to burn in hell forever. Not one Edomite is going to burn in hell forever. So that's showing you how this guy is constantly going off. Scriptures say waxing worse and worse. So now let's look this up. I'm going to get ready to close. This is a short one. Let's see what this says. Hold that fast which thou hast, meaning the truth. And holding the truth is not just holding it, burying it in a napkin. Luke 19, I believe. It means you get this truth, you go out and push the truth out. That no man take your crown, i.e., rob thee of it, the image of a race or other contest for a prize. So the one that wins the prize or the crown, well, back then they gave you crowns. They didn't give you medals. The ancient Olympics, they gave you crowns on your head, and you wanted to get that crown. The rosemary leaf crown made out of like gold. So when you're in a race, you got to be focused. You can't, you had the distant races, you had the boxing matches. So you had to be focused, and you couldn't think about your woman in the audience or whatever. Well, they didn't have women in the audience. They only had men in the ancient Olympics. For a prize, does not seem in harmony with the context nor the style of this book. But the Apostle Paul compared this truth that we in into a race. If you run a marathon and you say, oh, there's a Wendy's over there, I'm gonna go get something to eat. You stop, you go there, you get something to eat, you take your time eating, then you get back in the race, but you want to win the whole, you ain't gonna win the whole thing. You may come in dead last. So that's what it's talking about. That the crown is talking about, let me do this. Come back over here. Let's go to the word crown. The crown is the kingdom and all the blessings of the kingdom. These other nations are not going to have crowns because they're going to be servants. They're going to be slaves. So let's look up the words crown. Michael Jackson was considered the king of pop, right? Did he have a did he walk around with a crown on his head? No. But he was crowned with the invisible crown of pop. So this word right here, I'll let you listen to it.
Strong's G 4735, Stephanos. Stephanos.
Stephanos. A crown, a mark of royal or in general exalted rank. The wreath of garland, which was given as a pride to victors in public. Didn't I say that? It was a wreath. When you won the crown, you got a crown made out of, it was a wreath of gold. The wreath of garland, which was given as a prize to victors in the public games. Metaphorically, the eternal blissness which will be given as a prize, that's the kingdom, to the genuine servants. Ooh, to the genuine servants. What is the genuine servants of the Most High? The ones that do his will constantly, not taking any breaks. You disappear for 6 months or 2 years, then you pop up out of nowhere like you never left. And then the thing about them guys that do that, they'll come out. They ain't been out in 2-3 years, and all hell's breaking loose. The prophecies are coming to pass. All of a sudden, they pop out there and they're speaking like they never left. It says the crown, wreath, which is the reward of the righteous, which is the elect, that which is an ornament and honor to one. So that crown, the king could have got that crown by killing another king. So he didn't get that crown through righteousness. So that crown that was on that king's head, that the concubine, the daughter of the admiral, took the crown off his head and put it on her head and smacked him. She was saying, "I'm the king," and he laughed with it. That don't mean you lost your crown, man. The crown in Revelation 3:10, 10 and 11, 10 is the kingdom, is your body being changed to an extraterrestrial / celestial body, a superhuman body with spiritual power. So that's what we're fighting for. Anyway, with that, I'm gonna say shalom.